So he's been the head coach at Wagner for 10 years, starting back in 2012, winning 3 regular season conference titles. In that time, he's been named the NEC Coach of the Year 3 times, including last year. He played 4 seasons as a point guard at Drexel, where he was the first-time, 4-time member of the CAA All-Defensive Team. Also became the first freshman in league history to be named Defensive Player of the Year. I'm joined by Wagner head coach Bashir Mason.
Hey, thank you for having me. And based off of that intro, it sounds like I'm a really defensive-minded coach.
That's it. So you're 19-3 on the season. I mean, what's been working well for you guys right now, including a 14-game winning streak at one point?
You know what? I think it's just that. I think we've been able to guard really well and play hard. And I know we got enough talent on the offensive end. Our ball movement's been great. But the chip that these guys carried on their shoulder from a year ago, and wanting to come back and respond to our earlier exit from the conference tournament, I think that's carried us through. And I think that there's a growing excitement about getting back to that same place.
So speaking of growing excitement, when you had that 14-game winning streak, Wagner started to get some national attention for the first time in a long time. Just how good did that feel for you and your guys to finally be like, hey, maybe we're doing something right here?
You know what? That was a great feeling. And, us coaches, we're so serious sometimes, and we want to keep our guys locked in and focused and not worrying about stuff like that. I think we did a good job of really embracing it and enjoying that moment of being talked about nationally, and not wanting that to come to an end. And, unfortunately it happened, but I made sure that we enjoyed every moment of it. And, it was great.
So you're 38, is that right?
I am. Yeah, I turned 38 February 11th.
So you've been a head coach for 10 years. I mean, you're starting to feel a little older yet?
You know what? 10 years, I consider coaching to be dog years. So I'm aging by 7, as you can tell from my receding hairline. But you know what? I enjoy doing this. For as hard of a job as it is, these guys, they keep me young and youthful every day. And it's never a dull moment. So I'm enjoying it.
So if you could tell your 28-year-old self one thing, as far as a coach, not life, what would this version of a coach tell the 28-year-old you when you first took the job?
You know what? I'll keep that simple. Just relax. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You work hard enough every day, you'll get the results that you want. The world's not coming to an end if, y'all guys forget to do a shooting drill in practice.
Cool. So I love your roster. So I first, this year, obviously I've seen Wagner over the years, but my son and I flicking through earlier in the season, and we ended up stumbling on the Bryant game, the overtime win. So we ended up watching that. We were flicking through a couple of games, and my son was like, you know what, this Wagner team's pretty good. Let's just stick on this game. So I ended up watching that entire game, which is when I sort of jumped on the Wagner bandwagon this year. So I love your roster. I mean, they're skilled, but they're kind of tough, gritty guys. It reminds me of a team that could have played in the old Big East back in the 80s. It's that kind of team. Just tell me, what kind of guys are you looking to bring into Wagner? What are some of the key core traits? You're like, this guy's a Wagner player.
Yeah, so our mantra is toughness. And, to most, it's just a word, but for us, it has special meaning. And obviously, the core of it is actual toughness. So when we go out on the recruiting trail, not only do we look for talent and skill level and those things, because those are important, we look for guys that have those certain characteristics that make up a Wagner basketball player. And at the core of it, it's toughness. Being able to defend. Rebound the ball from your position, not just bigs, but guards as well. And just being able to just get after it. I love guys to get after it and play hard and want to compete, and compete to win, not compete just to get my points or, that stuff. I want guys competing every possession because every possession matters and they care. And we don't offer a lot of guys, it take us a while to get to the table to offer guys because we do a thorough job of really making sure that they'll fit into the core values that we have here at Wagner.
So mention, the Big East days. That's me. I'm mid 40s. That's the basketball I grew up loving. And then I see the Michigan Wisconsin game this week where the brawl breaks out. It reminded me of those days. I mean, your thoughts on that whole situation. I've seen a bunch of other coaches chime in. I mean, is there unwritten rules on timeouts and this kind of thing? Your perspective on it?
Yeah, I think there are unwritten rules about, scoring the last possession if you're winning. Um, just taking a turnover, just not trying to embarrass the other team. But for me and how I go about things and how we go about things in our program, I just talked to you about that level of competition. Sometimes things get real nasty in competition, but it's an unspoken rule here. Uh, we're competing, we're going hard. When we have a guy hit the floor, everybody stop what they're doing. I don't care if you're an injured player, you're on the side. Everybody run over, we sprint over, we help that player up, make sure he's okay. And then we get back to competing. It's something that we always talk about. I think just as men, to throw a punch, to swing at another guy, it's absolutely crossing the line. And for me, how I grew up, you talk about the Big East and playing. When you take a swing at another guy, for me, we can no longer be friends. We could almost no longer coexist. I think every time we see each other, there's always going to be a problem. So that's sort of the unspoken rule that we have here. We never throw punches because then we can no longer coexist. Somebody has to go from that point. And we never want to get to that point in our program. So I understand the level of competition, the unwritten rules, and I can see both sides of it. But I think once you throw a punch, it's crossing the line of competition and competitiveness.
Cool. So Alex Morales, leading scorer on the team, was at 17.9 points per game, 7.5 rebounds. I mean, I've watched him play a bunch this year, but just what kind of guy is he off the court?
Alex, he should be at like 25, 28 points per game, but he's just he's a laid back, cool, relaxed guy. He's such a team guy, and just a really good dude overall. I almost got to rev his engine some days to kind of force him to be the dominant player that he is. But one of my all-time favorite guys. Forget the talent. He's just a special, special person. And he allow us to be as good as we are because it's an inclusive environment from the best player down. I think from the coaches down to the best player. He don't walk around like, the sun shining set because he's a good player, which now allow everybody on the team to feel like they're a part of it. So, excellent player, but even a better personality.
Cool. So I'm up here in the Toronto area, born and raised in the East End in Scarborough, which is the East End of the city. And you have Jabril Price-Noel, who was Scarborough born and raised. And so I've seen Jabril growing up through, playing in high school and stuff like that. I always got to show love to my Scarborough guys. So you got him from Pacific this year. So I he didn't play the first half of the season. Was it eligibility, academics, injury?
Yeah, you know what? He was injured. I think he played our first, maybe our first 3 or 4 games of the year. He got hurt in the Stony Brook game this season, and he was out for a couple of weeks. But just this was a different situation for Jabril. We recruited him knowing his skill level, his size, all those different things, and he came into an environment. There's no fouls in practice. There's no out of bounds in practice. This is one of the loudest atmospheres, competitive atmospheres he's probably been a part of. He probably felt like he got dropped off on Mars when he got here. And we slowly started to see him, get accustomed to the culture and how we go about things. And, I saw really good things happen, and then he got injured. And now he's been back. And I thought in our last 2 to 3 games, he's really started to come on and show his confidence and his understanding of exactly what we're doing. And I think he's an X factor for us. I think we know what we're getting out of, the guys we've been getting from all year. And now he's sort of that unknown. And, he's capable of dribble driving, catching and shooting and making plays for other guys. So just being able to have a dynamic, player like him is certainly an advantage for us.
So I don't know if you're able to comment on it, but did I see that Ramir Moore transferred into you guys? I think I saw something online.
Yeah, Ramir Moore's here.
Okay, so he's eligible for next year?
Yeah, he'll be eligible next
So
year.
I know Ramir, I do play-by-play for Orangeville Prep, which is the #1 high school program up here in Canada. And Ramir was over at TRC Academy, and he was one of my favorite guys in the league, a guy I championed and interviewed a bunch of times. I love him, and he always says to me, I'm a dog, man. So just talk to me about what your hopes are for Ramir moving ahead next year.
Yeah, so you know what, we're going to lose a ton of points, a ton of talent, and I didn't want to replace those guys with freshmen. So Ramir's an older guy, been in college for 3 years. At the height of his career, it was about 7.5 points at the Atlantic 10 level. So NEC level, we felt like he'd be a double-figure scorer for us, which again we needed to add some scoring to the roster. But at the core of him, what we talked about, he's a dog, and he'll fit right into that culture of toughness and defending and getting after it. So he was a perfect fit for us.
Yeah, that's a young guy I've been really rooting for. I know for those unfamiliar, from the Philadelphia area, but then moved up to the Toronto area to play basketball, which, in my day playing high school hoops, to think an American would come to Canada to increase his chances of getting a scholarship was just unheard of. But played at St. Joe's and now over at Wagner. And I just, after watching you guys this year, I just think, he fits that mold so perfectly. And I'm excited to see what he does for you guys. So,
not the X factor with Ramir, but I don't know if it's known. His brother-in-law is Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
So his sister's married to Kyle, and that was also a part of the move to Canada. He was staying with his sister and his brother-in-law, and obviously getting the training that he needed to become a Division I level talent.
Yeah, Kyle was always at some of the games. Saw him in the gym a few times. Always a buzz when Kyle walked in. It was cool.
Yeah, but, we're hoping we can get him here to create that same buzz.
I guarantee he'll always make an appearance. He's been really supportive of Ramir, so that's awesome to see. But so mentioned off the top, 4-time all defensive team in the CAA. I mean, who taught you that mindset of how to play basketball like that?
You know what? That was upbringing, but I started playing organized basketball when I was 8 years old, and Donald Copeland Sr. Was my coach at the Jersey City Boys and Girls Club, and he was from that era of when the ball's thrown up. If you're not in your guy's jersey, you were coming out of the game, and we practiced that way, and then when we got to the game, I mean, literally, as soon as the ball was thrown up, if he didn't feel like you were in your guy's jersey, he would sub all 5 guys out, and just scream at you, you're not ready to play. And you know what? Maybe at the time I didn't know what was happening, but I knew, one, when that ball was thrown up, I better show him that I'm ready to play if I want to stay in the game. And just those, things like that's always stuck with me. And I knew I was a really good defender just kind of growing up. That's always sort of been my role. I took pride in it. And, it carried me all the way through my career.
Cool. So, Bashir, before I worked in the media, I worked in the music business. I was an agent and a concert promoter for over 20 years. And one of the groups I represented that people seem to get excited about is the WuTang Clan. So I was the WuTang Clan's agent for over a decade. Wagner, Staten Island, WuTang, Staten Island. What do you know about the WuTang? Are you familiar with the music? Are you a fan?
Yeah, big time fan. I grew up on that era of hip hop, that music, and I actually think that Method Man's daughter, I don't know if I should say, I think she's a student here at Wagner, or maybe she graduated within the last year or so. So I haven't run into any of those guys on campus. The complex I lived in Jersey a couple years back, I think Raekwon actually lived there. So I did see him a couple times. We were hanging out at the pool, but I'm a big fan of their music, and they mean everything to this island.
So if you had to pick one guy from the WuTang, who's your main guy?
It would have to be Method Man. Thought he was a great rapper. He had unbelievable swagger. He always rapped like he was the best rapper in the group. And it's also good right now to see him on the Power series and on Showtime, doing a really good job with that.
So, it's funny. I always tell the story with Method Man and, with Redman as well. I toured him and, they always kind of play, kind of goofy guys in How High and stuff like that. But when you sit down and chat with them, they are two of the smartest guys I've ever come across anywhere in the music business. And that's why they're in the business for 30 years. I would always tell young artists that. It's like, look, man, these guys know how to connect. I'll tell one story. So last day of the tour, and the promoter up here, got them, something to smoke as usual. And it was too much because they were heading over the border. The next day, they said, we can't bring this back. So Method Man pulled me aside. He said, Chris, go out in the crowd and go find some people who are fans. He says, not just girls, go get some guys back here and bring them back and see if they want to come smoke with Method Man and Redman. And so I walk around the club and say, hey, you want to go smoke? People are like, are you serious? I'm like, just come. So I tried to find some normal people, brought them back. They ended up giving it all to the fans and stuff like that. And these are just guys, took pictures, how to smoke with the kids and just understood how to connect with people. And I always try to tell that to a lot of other young artists of, it's important. Don't just take their money and run. Connect with the people,
Yeah, yep, it's important.
So your first career win as a coach, I kind of had a chuckle at this last night when I was going through notes. November 12th, 2012, you beat North Carolina Central 38-36. What kind of game is 38-36?
Yeah, you know what? I actually got the ball right here in my office. We we were running Dean Smith's the four corners in that game. You know what? I was, up until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, that was one of my most, I was really proud to get that win. Not because it was my first win, but it was just a defensive battle, a defensive struggle, and we pulled it out. One of the things I preach to all my teams, we just want to have one more point than the other team. I don't care if it's in the 80s. I don't care if it's in the 20s. Just one more point when the clock gets to zero. But what's crazy about that game is we jumped out in the first 4 minutes of that game. We jumped out 12-2, and finished the game with 38 points, which is which is incredible.
Yeah.
But, I remember that game like it was yesterday, man. That was an unbelievable game, incredibly low scoring, and I'm happy we won it that way. I was excited about that.
I thought maybe the fire alarm went off or something, and they just said, all right, that's it, 38-36. So,
we just need to throw the ball in the ocean.
So Wagner, only one appearance in the NCAA tournament in 2003. What would it mean for you and your guys to finally, break through and get in there?
You know what? That was the goal. Once we started this year, started this whole thing. It'll mean everything to this group. We know how long it hasn't been done. We've talked about it. We bring it up. We talk about it often. We have a picture of that 2003 team inside of our locker room. We got one right outside of my office. I want it to always be on our guys' mind. It's a part of our history. In this group right here, we want to add to the history of Wagner basketball and getting us on that national stage. And this group is not just excited about getting there. It'd be an honor just to get there. I haven't been as a player or a coach, but we want to get there and win some games.
So last question, I'm thankful for your time. 2 games left in the regular season and the conference tournament. What's some of the focus? What's the messaging to your guys? Like, hey, we're almost at the finish line. If we do this, this, and this, so what's going to get us there?
Yeah, you know what? We had that conversation actually today. While we've been great to this point, we want to focus on those things, and also understand the time that we're in. It's late February. Everybody has a knee, shoulder, ankle, a foot. Everybody's a little tired. And our mantra is what's going to win it. The toughest team the next week and a half, that's going to be the team that's going to win this thing. So no matter what's happening, what happened yesterday or prior to, it don't matter. The most detailed teams, the most organized teams, but more importantly, the tougher teams are going to win right now. So that's our focus moving forward.